Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions, and I'm tired like it's Monday when it's actually Sunday when I'm recording this. It's been a sleepy week this week. I don't know why. Just been very tired. Well, I mean, it's not that I don't know why. We had the live letter on Wednesday, and I don't think I've recovered sleep-wise since then, even though I've been trying to. Trust me, whether it be naps or just sleepiness in general. Which why there hasn't been too much. We did kind of the standard videos for the week. We did our weekly Q&A, we did our live letter videos, we did our podcast, and now here we are, week around. I did actually get everything I need for the Baldesion Arsenal video, and on the news there is going to be a slight change to Warrior in 5.3. Probably going to hold off on the tank versus and adjust for that, although it doesn't actually take that much of an adjustment. I definitely want to factor that in to my end video for the tank versus, which the script is now done for. Well, done. Got to go back to the drawing board on that. Before we get into the Patreon thank, I also just want to quickly address, I had a bunch of comments under this video saying that's okay about the sponsored stuff, you know, whatever, I don't need to explain it. Just know that I feel an obligation to explain it. You know, YouTube's been, it had its ups and downs, I'll say, whether it be my consistency in the ability to produce content or to be in the mood to produce content, or in the amount that I can actually earn from it, because the platform is way up and down when it comes to that regard in particular. I feel that at the very least, I owe people fair enough explanations when it's their viewership and their minutes and their time that keeps the channel going. So that's why I made that explanation last week, and you know, I'll probably make it again in the future at some point whenever it actually needs to be relevant. And with that, let's thank our patron sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. I've gone back and forth and used the wrong noun, verb, adjective, whatever, incorrectly, but those names scrolling, a big shout out to all those people. Thank you for supporting the channel over on Patreon. It just supports the YouTube channel, nothing else, nothing fancy. You just being here and watching this video is more than enough, but they've gone above and beyond. You know who else has gone above and beyond? Our patrons of darkness, Khuja, Janova, and Kurenai Oni. Thank you to both of them for needlessly going above and beyond. I'll add an extra descriptor for that because, I mean, I'm just doing my thing. That's it. So thank you to all of my patrons of darkness, and all of you tuning in this week. Now let's see how many opinion questions we have this week, because we had quite a few in the last couple of weeks. All right, first question, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, you hap, you doing good? Yeah, sleepy. That's all. I hope you're doing good as well. And you're doing great. Even better. Looking heavily forward to seeing my boy Ellentill in 5.3. My question this week is, do you think Square Enix are capable of implementing a voice chat system into 14 that people could use across PlayStation and PC? I play on PlayStation, but I have a Discord to run on my laptop. I know friends who don't have a laptop or something to run Discord while they play. So when it comes to doing content, we'd prefer to be on voice. I have to pick between grouping up in a PlayStation party or Discord VC. So here's the thing. Technologically, of course they're capable of it. It's been done for well over the number of years that Final Fantasy XIV has even been around. Heck, WoW even has, or had, I don't know if they still have it, an in-game voice chat function. They don't usually work super great, and I have a feeling that because I think they've answered this in exactly this way. I'd have to find the source. If somebody has a source, please let me know what it is where I heard this, because I could just be talking out my ass here. Where they said that they could do it, but if they include it, then everyone's going to feel obligated to use it. It's one of those things where they say, if we do this, then people will feel obligated, like they have to use it. But realistically, third-party programs are used for it anyway, like Discord. And it's the same with like DPS meters. If they include them, then it implies everyone has to use them, and everyone has to, you know, has to sort of integrate it into their mode of looking at the game. And them not incorporating it hasn't changed that. It's still a major factor when it comes to things like recruitment and judging other player skill. It's just done through a third party. I'm pretty sure it's been the same excuse for voice chat, and I don't expect that that's going to change anytime soon. While they could no doubt do it, they probably won't. They probably won't ever put the resources towards it. Unfortunately, yeah, my only other good bet for that is to have like a phone or something. And, you know, I say things like that, and a lot of people obviously think back to our good old Blizzard meme, don't you guys have phones? Realistically, there's a lot of people that either don't have a good enough connection. There's a lot of people, I see Aloha in the back. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily have a great internet connection, good enough to actually use both voice comms and a game. And some people who straight up, they don't have the kind of money. They subscribe to a single form of entertainment like 14 or something that's affordable over time without needing to buy lots of stuff. And sometimes, you know, a smartphone or a laptop or something like this, it's not on the cards. It's just not. It's just not possible. So I feel for you on that, but unfortunately, that's the only advice I have is get it on your phone and get some sort of audio splitter, and that's just more money. So it's not really great advice. So unfortunately, I wouldn't expect to see one ever, to be honest. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, hope you're doing alright. I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. I got one of those evil opinion questions. That's one for the week. If you had to rank the raid tiers, what would, this isn't that bad. These aren't the kind of questions that I'm talking about when I say that. We're still at 0. What would it look like and why would Alphascape not be the best? Bonus points if you can differentiate between progging and farming. Progging and farming is so different on every single raid tier. Like this is a discussion I could not have in a single video. I will say this. Gordius is often overranked as an entire raid tier by the people who remember those days. 1 and 2 were really nothing special. 2, a lot of people didn't like in particular. 3 is where everyone has the shining nostalgia, and nobody liked 4. Midas was actually terrible for the game overall, as much as it was an infinitely better raid scene, and quite frankly, my favorite raid tier to this day. But the damage that Gordius did to our raid scene was not repaired in Midas, so much so that only a month after Midas came out, they already had to nerf one of the fights. They fixed it a little bit too, but they had to outright nerf it because people were getting stuck on the second encounter. So that raid tier, as much as it's my favorite, it was so toxic to the community in the prog sense. And farming it was a bit of a pain too after you were done with the first one, just because of the way the encounters were actually done. I think that ever since they've gone to creator, I felt kind of same-ish about most raid tiers. Most of them are really fun to prog minus 1 or 2 fights, and then most of them are kind of to farm once you're actually best. So that's kind of just how the creator tier works. I'd say my favorite post-creator farm tier has been Sigmascape. Now, I actually don't like Sigmascape very much. I think it had 3 bosses that you couldn't position. No, sorry, let me rephrase. It had 2 bosses you couldn't position. It had 1 boss that was incredibly slow, both in the pacing of the fight and just the overall, the boss himself was just, it wasn't a very swift one, to say the least, and that of Guardian. And I'm honestly just not a big fan of Kefka for anything other than its tank and heal checks. The heal checks especially, even though I have other issues with the types of heal checks Kefka had. I may not like that tier, I may not have liked progging it, but realistically, I remember going back every week in farm parties, and the optimization that went into our week-by-week farms was better and better because of the way the fights were designed. Looking for ways to get more uptime or looking for ways to boost DPS was something that was frequently a discussion in that raid tier, and that's largely disappeared with Eden. Nobody really talks about it much anymore. There was a little bit with Eden's Gate, but Eden's Verse, people have gone on to doing solo tank, solo heal, Epic of Alexander, or 7-man Ukov, instead of even trying to have a conversation like that about Eden's Verse or Eden's Gate. So that says all it really needs to say. I'm going to go with Sigmascape on the farming, and for prog, I'm going to go with Midas. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, apologies for my misuse of the term gatekeeper. No, I think you were correct. We were just talking about different types of gatekeepers. I was talking about the 4th boss gatekeeper, and you were talking about 1st boss gatekeepers. That's fine. We were just talking about different kinds of gatekeepers. We were all the same. I'll make it up with a simple question. If next expansion is themed towards a particular Final Fantasy, I'm assuming you mean the raid, because you said Eden and Final Fantasy VIII. Which Final Fantasy would you like to see get the love? I want to see 6. Okay, so I'll answer the question first. If there is one, I agree, 10. As much as I don't like Blitzball, it's a frequent joke around here. 10 I would like to see. That being said, all my favorite raid tiers have never really been focused around one specific Final Fantasy. Sometimes it's focused around an ideology or a certain series of Final Fantasy games, whether it be the 8 or the 24-man. But like Eden is the first one where we've really gotten an 8-man raid tier that is so... It's very much a 14 story, and it very much doesn't... It's not all Final Fantasy VIII references, even though it's definitely had a few because of where Eden is from. But it feels like it's going down that path. Like it's always on the back of your mind, whether it be the music or the similar themes. Everyone's talking about, are we going to get an Ultimecia for like the final boss? And and they're trying to like draw lore points together that are similar to Final Fantasy VIII. It's perfectly reasonable. It's always in the back of your mind. With Bahamut, Alexander, Omega, other than the raid tiers just borrowing bosses that you may recognize from other games, you largely felt like it was something that was just super Final Fantasy XIV focused. And I like that. I've actually enjoyed Eden so far more than Omega, and even the first 2 tiers a little more than Alexander. Alexander, by the 3rd tier, everything came together, and it was actually a beautiful, beautiful story that was being told there. I kind of want to see that more. I want to see more of these figures that aren't so anchored to a specific Final Fantasy, and them to be getting raid tiers, because I feel like that freedom it makes things a little bit less predictable. It gives them a little bit more freedom, and I prefer that approach. But if they're not going to go that route, 10. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello to you, Happy. Hello. Been watching for a bit and thought now would be a good chance to ask my first question. Questions? Plural? Question mark? I'm a first-time bonus with the Analogy Q&A makes my work commutes tolerable. Well, I hope you have safe work commutes with everything going on. That is more important than anything. I've been thinking of current balance between caster DPS and what can be done with the problem child summoner. You know that it's going to be nerfed a little bit. I don't play much melee from an outsider's point of view. There seems to be a pretty good sliding scale between the 4 jobs as far as damage versus utility goes. So I wanted to get your I wanted your input on this, considering you used to melee main back in Stormlight. Yeah, you know what's it's funny. I don't like melee at all. I only like ninja right now. I agree with you on the sense that it's very balanced right now. Maybe Dragoon could use a little bit of a bump, but other than that, no, they've done a really solid job. I almost feel like having more jobs lets you differentiate them a little bit better. It's why I didn't when they originally said they were only going to have 3 healers because they wanted to nail the balance down. I feel like when you have more jobs, when you have more of something, you can more accurately like tip scales or make adjustments based on kind of like expected growth between them. It's hard for me to describe, but it's similar to the discussion we have for raid tiers. Raid tiers only being 4 bosses means they do that like first 2 bosses are kind of entry level, 3rd boss is a jump, and the 4th boss is exponentially more difficult than all the 3 prior ones. And if they had more bosses, that difficulty curve would even out. They could balance each individual encounter more accurately to a certain item level and still keep the experience kind of linear the whole way through without all these huge jumps in difficulty. Job design is kind of the same in that regard, in that the less jobs you have in a role, the more people are kind of like really picky about how they perform or how they stack up against each other. If it's even off by a little bit, then the scrutiny is a great deal higher, because the number of slots you're fighting for versus the number of jobs you actually have means that any sort of small difference is massive in that specific pack. I think having 4 melees has actually made it easier. 4 tanks also, I think, has just made it easier to actually balance the role across the board. And even when one's not performing well, it often just leads to a situation where it makes it so they really have to get on top of balancing it. So that way, all 4 of them can be even. I mean, people still meme on the individual melees. Some people meme on Samurai, some people meme on Dragoon. And with the tanks, people meme on Warrior, people meme on Dark Knight. But all across the board, they're all performing fairly well. And I kind of hope that Caster is one of the lucky ones to get a 4th job in the next expansion, along with healers, in order for them to level that out a little bit more. Sorry, Range Physical, we're probably screwed for a while because we just got Dancer, and frankly, we just got Machinist. I think 6.0 is where we're going to see Caster DPS kind of level out, but I think it's going to take a complete redesign of Summoner to do it. I think they're doing it with Monk in 5.4. I think Summoner, literally back to the drawing board in 6.0. I think it gets the Machinist treatment in 6.0, and it's just completely reworked from the bottom up. I don't see an alternative, to be honest. There's other jobs I'm worried about, but that one I'm worried about above all else. I see you do have a second question. I'm going to read the rest, and maybe we'll come back to it in the lightning round, though. But thank you. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hope you're finding yourself in good spirits today. Yeah, other than being a little sleepy. I feel it now. I feel extra tired, especially because I ate lunch right before this. Anyways, my question. During the 5.3 trailer, we saw a ton of models that were used, had concept art for Type 0, and my interest peaked. So I went to go play it, and okay, I'm going to give you guys a heads up. I'm not a huge fan of Type 0. Some of that is my initial experience with the very motion blur heavy PS4 HD release. The PC version, you can play without motion blur. They patched the PS4 version, have less motion blur. But even after that, I tried playing it for a little bit. It just, I think kind of my experience was so sullied that I didn't even try to look for like redeeming factors. I just kind of was instantly drawn to things like almost reasons not to play. So I don't have a very level-headed opinion on Type 0. I'm going to preface this with that. I know it was a PSP game, but why is it so clunky and hard to play? Did it have a rushed dev cycle? No, a lot of it is down to the type of game that it is. The game has a lot of different playable characters. And while they all have a different style, they all have a different weapon, they all have a different means of actually accessing their power, they're all, at the same time, they're all kind of samey, if you know what I mean? Like, the combat system needed to support having this wide array of characters, but also make it so you could, play as any given one or pick certain ones during certain scenarios. There's a few things that I think lead to it, but more above anything else, the PSP was probably one of the most major factors. I'm going to lay a truth bomb down on you. Crisis Core's combat has not aged well. And that's another PSP title for you. I like the game. It hasn't aged well. And Type 0 kind of feels that same way to me, where it's the effect of it being a PSP dev game, or like a game that was developed on the PSP. It feels like it's carried that weight, continued to carry that weight, and will probably continue to carry that weight. I don't find the combat very enthralling, but the story and the world is amazing in Type 0. I love the military-esque dark themes that it takes on, and I'm kind of hoping we see a little bit more of that. We've seen a lot of that in 14, but I want to see a little bit more. I don't mind. They don't mess around in Type 0. It's a great overall experience, even if the combat's a little bit lacking. It wouldn't be the first game I played with lacking combat, and still enjoyed. So yeah, I'd say it's probably because it's of the PSP above anything else, but honestly, at least it still has a good story. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Yo, after seeing the Soulsborne question on episode 396, 196? What? Where are we? Was it 196? I don't remember where it is. So recently I answered a Soulsborne question. I'm going to assume it was 296. Sorry, 2 and 3 are next to each other on the keyboard. I don't know why I said 196. Anyway, do you think 14 recycles content too often? Since A Realm Reborn, we've seen the original Realm Reborn primals reappear 3 times, along with a new Unreal trial system, which is even more. Along with most bosses rely on being a throwback to Final Fantasy Classic and previous games, do you think the game could sustain itself any longer since it's so reliant on... I mean, the entire Final Fantasy franchise is literally about reskinning. I mean, RPGs in general are often about reskinning and repackaging and retooling similar models with different either minor or major differences. I'll give you a really direct one, even though it's only 2 palette swaps. The Nutkins and Skull Eaters of Final Fantasy V. A Nutkin is one of the most common enemies you can find. There's really nothing special about it in a sense. But the Skull Eaters are among one of the most threatening and one of the most lucrative in the form of job points in that game, and they can be an absolute monster to deal with. That's a very, very light example. There's some games that reuse palette swaps and bosses 2, 3, 4 times, but it's a very Final Fantasy-esque thing. In an MMO, it stands out a lot more. I agree with you. I think how do I put it this way? I've got vastly different experiences with each of them. I think the only place I start to look at this is Unreal Trials, and even then, Unreal is it's one of their projects where they're trying to take something that doesn't use a lot of assets and create content for players that are not longtime vets. I think as somebody who plays the game a lot, and as someone who affiliates myself with people who play the game a lot, we look back on these times and we look at it as reusing it. We look back on it and we go, oh, I did that already. Why would I bother doing that again? Oh, just because you can attach some minigame to it. Some player who just started playing 6 months ago, maybe they fought Shiva hard mode, maybe they've unsynced Shiva extreme at some point. They have no idea how the fight actually works. They'll be like, oh, yeah, I was wondering what that fight was like back then, because now we just unsync it and blow through it. Honestly, even if you sync some of these encounters, you kind of just massacre them. And yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see specifically how people who didn't play, 4, 5, 6 years ago respond to Unreal Trials, because I think it's really more for them than it is for someone like me. I plan on doing it weekly. I plan on trying out my luck on the faux hollows, even though we have no idea how it actually works. But I wouldn't say I'm like overly enthusiastic about it in a sense. But it's very Final Fantasy, whether or not I want to admit it as a longtime fan. So I'm not really all that surprised that they've landed on this. And quite frankly, I still don't think they're even going far enough when it comes to reusing assets and coming up with new ideas. But that's a discussion for another time. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey Haps, how you doing this week? My week hasn't been great. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully, I can cheer it up with an answer. Here to ask another question. When you were over in Japan, did you get a chance to meet Koji? No, that man is locked behind a door that no one can get to. Whether it be because he holds all the secrets to the lore, or because he's quite literally locked away translating much of his day. If he's not actually at an event, or he hasn't specifically made time, it's very hard to get in touch with Koji Fox. It's very hard to ever have a conversation with him unless he's part of a panel or an interview session, because he's just really busy. His translation work is very time consuming. He has a family, and he's just goes through hell. We know he also helps some other projects with translations and localizations and stuff like that. So I didn't even think to ask if I could like see him. I wasn't gonna rip that man away from his probably insane schedule. You have because you have a lot of opinions for both yourself and your audience. That would be great as a source of player feedback. Yeah, but Khuja isn't somebody that I would be providing feedback to. I have no feedback or opinion on his localization or his work, especially because I don't speak Japanese. I don't understand the language. I have no critique on him from like what he's translating, what he's localizing. I could at best get word of mouth from somebody else, but quite frankly, I don't think that's something that would be very valuable to him. But I don't know if the dev team watches this. I know that they've admitted to watching things like live streams of people. They've not ever specifically shown someone when they're doing like Ultimate Prog and stuff like that. But I don't know that they tune into any of my content. Listen, again, some people hold my opinion more to a higher degree than other people's opinion. I don't agree with that outlook. I think everyone's opinion, as long as it's based on something that is, how do I say, grounded, where it's not baseless, it's not based on inaccuracies, that it could be a valuable opinion. And we all kind of make the mistake of making some opinions based on inaccuracies or expectations or things like that. But I hope they wouldn't treat my opinion, or specifically only the group of opinions that appear under my videos, in any more regard than something they see on the forums or something they see on Reddit. You know, they may go looking, but I don't think they're like watching like, we need to learn more about this. I think they're more looking at the whole collective than any one individual occasion. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. There's a lot more questions this week. I'm probably going to have to do a super lightning round this week. Good day, Habs. Hope I loved your response to the question I asked the other week about elitism. So thanks for that. Been watching your channel since the early days, and I look forward to continuing to do so. Also, Lynx has a great series. Yeah, Lynx's videos have been popping up. Literally, I've got three Lynx videos right here on the side. Right here. What else do I have? I have one of my own Q&As. I've got my live letter, my 180 Mondays with Mr. Happy. And then I've got, what's this one? Whose is this? And one from Mioni. I've got all those on my sidebar right now. So yeah, I've got them right as we're speaking. I didn't know Lynx was making videos. I raided with Lynx for like 2 weeks before we both quit the same static on like the same day. Unfortunate times. It was a good time though. I actually put them out there with live letter expansion detail videos. No pressure. So far, sorry for the rambling. They're apologizing, not me. Here's a fastball question. What are your favorite wing sauces? Spicy. I'll take a spicy sauce over anything. You know what my favorite thing is? When you get either like a buffalo or a hot wing, right? And they're cooked, and the thing that they're cooking on, it's a little too hot, so you get that crispy bit on the bottom, but it's really just like almost like burnt hot sauce or buffalo. Oh, that's my favorite part right there. Give me that. I'll take that every time. Yeah, buffalo or a hot sauce. I can do very, very many levels of hot sauce, so all of those are up there on my scale. If I'm looking for something to casually enjoy, I actually will go honey barbecue over anything else. That's my sweet, not looking to torture myself option at any given point. All right, this one's from yesterday. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope your week has gone well, and hope you and your girlfriend have been healthy during these tough times. From one Jersey guy to another. Listen, I'd flex for you, but there's not much going on here anymore. Now the question. Okay, me and my group have been progressing T for the past several weeks, and now I believe we're hitting regression. That's pretty normal after that exact amount of time, and I'm going to assume I know where you are in the fight. I know all of the Nisi phase by heart for the most part, and some of Prime, but I feel the group doesn't put as much effort as I do into knowing and understanding the mechanics. We're at enumeration. Enumerations. Wait, no, you're at BJCC enumeration? I'm assuming, yes, that part trips people up a little bit. Try to keep a positive attitude, but I feel, or doesn't have consistency up to this point. Friday night we kept wiping to liquid or limit cut. Yeah, we've had nights like that. How do you keep positive environment, or is there a way to tell them how to take the mechanics more seriously and focus on performing on them? So here's the brutal truth. When this starts happening, you actually need to straight up ask if people even want to be there anymore. I guarantee you there's members of your raid who actually, they're only there because they're obligated to be there, and they groan as soon as they find out raid time is starting. I guarantee you, based on the way that you're describing the situation, that is actually what's happening here. They're kind of just barely getting by. They might have something up on the other monitor. They might even be talking to other people. Who knows? But it's the kind of attitude that I could see right now. Generally, without actually asking, does anyone want to be here anymore? You can say something like, do we need to go over it again? Or is everyone clear on what to do? You kind of throw out those feelers there where like you're showing, hey, you know, clearly we're making mistakes and I'd like to fix it. And then somebody as always hits a point where they go, honestly, I kind of just don't want to do it. And I have a feeling this is in the next week or so, you're going to have a member or two bail out. And whether or not that's a cascading effect is a whole nother story, but they're probably just as demoralized as you are, The difference being, instead of focusing on playing better or improving, they're just kind of thinking about when the night's going to be over. That's not a great attitude to have with Ultimate. It happens to everyone. I'll be honest. I've seen it happen to people throughout Prague of Ultimate. I've seen it happen on reclears. I've seen it happen on raids. I'm kind of like that a little bit, especially if I feel like I'm putting in more effort and other people aren't. I'm like, honestly, let's wrap this up, because people are not focused. People are not performing. We're just throwing hours at this. And just grinding isn't good enough. You need to improve. You need to learn. And that is the truth of the matter. And you're not an elitist for asking if you're going to throw hours and hours and days for people to be on an equal playing field in regards to their commitment. And Ultimate is a commitment. And if people aren't ready for that, then they need to take a step back and maybe just stick to Savage, stick to some other content, because you cannot beat it with that kind of attitude. So that's my whole thought on your situation. So if you want to keep the attitude positive, the best thing you can do is just try to work with people to improve any specific spots that still need improving. And there's not really much more you're going to do. Odds are the truth will come out that some people just kind of don't want to be there. And I hate to tell you, I hate to be the one to tell you, but hopefully it doesn't turn out the way I've predicted, and you can keep some positivity, help encourage some people to improve, and be on to the next phase as soon as possible. All right, we got a short one here. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. What's up, Haps? Hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. My question this week has a LOT, I'm assuming lore-based one from the E2 fight. Do you ever find out who Erebos is? No, we're expecting to find that out. It's pretty safe to say he's probably a high-ranking Voidsent. Where he actually falls in the Voidsent hierarchy is questionable, but the fact that he's able to be called across dimensions and he's so large that he can't actually fit, it's at least worth guessing that he might be on a similar level in the hierarchy to Cloud of Darkness, but we have no hard proof of that. So we're hoping that, well, I'm hoping to find out whether or not in the final tier of Eden or in the or some point later on. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Habs, comment on last week's first question. I don't even remember. Extreme duty? Sure, make them silly, hard, and weird. Give us things like logos. Oh, okay, so it was probably about like the 4-man dungeons or something like that. Now question, I too wish that we can get away from incorporating other games' lore into our own complicated world. Sorry, Nier. What of all places and things have been hinted at in Hydaelyn that you would like us to finally explore? Mrhappy and the New World. I mean, we've got blue mages that came over from the New World. We know it's largely like Native American North America before it was colonized. We know Mrhappy is a desolate wasteland that was wiped away during the Allagan era and has not since recovered. Obviously, there's pieces of Ilsebard. We're going to start exploring that with the southern Bajdan front. It's the very, very bottom where we're not really going to be seeing a whole lot of Ilsebard. This is kind of the more inhabitable sections, but it's also a complete war zone. But yeah, I gotta say that Sharlayan's also up there. There's a lot of things that we haven't seen or things that we know about but have only seen tiny bits of lore. And so I do really think that I want to see Mrhappy. I'm kind of hoping, I mean, it's a desolate wasteland with, you know, only the most hostile of life. I mean, at the very least, that sounds like room for exploration style content, if not a great place to hide some sort of really, really major evil that could be lurking in the world. So yeah, we're going to go with those. Those are both my answers. Oh, this one's only 4 hours ago. You got this one in late. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hey there, Happy. Hope you're doing all right, because I'm doing all right. Glad to hear it. My question is simple. What is a good gaming monitor? Budget isn't an issue, and I'm looking for a high refresh rate. Okay, I'm going to level with you guys. I don't care about gaming monitors that much. Now, I'm not going to say they don't do anything. Obviously, higher refresh rates, FPS, color, all that stuff. My eyes are so borked. Just, they have been my whole life. It's not even just about the color blindness. I don't see as well out of an eye. Like, it's bad. When I get old, my eyes are going to be the first thing to go. Shit, as far as I'm concerned, they've been going my whole life. I just don't care about gaming monitors. I have a 1440p monitor with, I think, a 144 hertz refresh rate or something like that. I didn't buy it. I didn't even think to buy it, and I don't even play my games in 1440p. I don't even like looking out at our new 50-inch TV that I got Mel for anniversary. It's just not it's not attractive. I actually kind of need things to be smaller and focused because it makes it easier on my site to actually take care of it. It's why my UI is kind of scrunched to some degree. It helps with things like tunnel vision, as well as lets me focus what good vision I have into a more direct spot. So I'm the wrong person to ask about monitors. A little bit of background for me, and unfortunately not a good answer for you. Here's a quick one. I should really just do this one in the lightning round, but hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays. Yo, Haps, you doing all right? Have some soldiery. Now I should have really thrown it for the lightning round because you gave me something that doesn't work. If and when do they increase the drop rates for primal mounts? 2 patches later. You know what's interesting? Some questions have like 2-3 comments underneath, and sometimes I look at those and I don't answer them, but a lot of the times it's just like some of the first questions that get answered, they just happen to be there. Long-time listener, first-time asker. Hello to you too, by the way. I'm a returning player after taking a year or so off, whichever bonus fits you the best this time. See, that's someone who cares, unlike the person in the question before. Any advice for getting over performance anxiety, especially for tanking or healing? I get this question every now and again. A lot of the times people are overthinking or they're overthinking or overthinking. They're overthinking or they're overpressuring themselves to perform to a degree that they've read online. Like they read like the parse log like posts, or they read like the shitty experience somebody had in their duty finder, and they don't want to be the person that's being written about anonymously or otherwise. So you convince yourself that if you're not playing at this like absolute pinnacle, that you're therefore scumming the group, and that gives you performance anxiety. Now that's my experience, what I've seen people kind of go through, and I'm assuming that's kind of where you are right now because you haven't played in a while. Honestly, you're overthinking it. A lot of times people are just overthinking this. This is my advice to anyone with performance anxiety. You literally will not get better by not playing. You will maybe suck. You will maybe die. You will maybe screw up and kill the party. Somebody may flame you. That's life, dude. We all screw up. We all mess up. We all get shit on at some point. It doesn't matter if it's a video game or real life. It doesn't matter. You have to do it, improve, and maybe one day, even if you're not the kind of toxic person that the other person may have been, maybe one day you'll be shitting on them, just kind of quietly to yourself. You'll be like, that's that same guy who said, how did you die to that? And that motherfucker just jumped off the edge on Red Mage. That dude sucks, all right? Yeah, now look at it. Now who's top DPS? Get it. Don't even res that guy. That's going to be you. You just got to take your time and improve and work on yourself. And then maybe you'll be that like secret toxic level player who's just really proud that you've actually improved and that you're playing well. And that those shitty people who were harassing you or whatever, you don't have to worry about them anymore. They're gone. All right, I'm not going to lie. There's actually a lot of questions left. I don't have very in-depth answers to a lot of them, so I think we're going to start our lightning round now. It's going to be a long lightning round, dude. Let's see. We had this one. It's likely to hit a cap of new jobs being added to the game. It's likely. I think that after 6.0, they go down to 1 job per expansion. They can't do 2 every single time. They could. They absolutely could. I don't think they will. So I feel like there is a point where they just it's too much. They just can't do it. But until that point hits, then 2 jobs per expansion. Yay! And maybe a limited job here and again. We know that 14 doesn't have very popular PvP. I have suggestions for new content that would reward grinding for gear if you can't commit to raiding. But if you're not raiding, you don't need better gear. That's one of the big things. Is they don't want you just mindlessly grinding gear for content you're not going to do. Gear is more of a reward vessel in 14 than it is a necessary vessel for you to actually complete stuff. But at the same time, if you're not going to actually do higher tier raid content, then you don't need better gear. That's when you start doing things like trying out other content like Eureka or leveling another job or crafting or gathering. That's kind of what they bank on you doing. So I don't see that happening. It's just unlikely that they'll ever go too far other than giving you catch-up patches where you're able to catch up an item level with much easier content. What were the community's sentiment towards individual jobs? It's so volatile, that answer, because it just changed every patch. Like Astro, every patch was going through changes. Dark Knight was shit on at first and ended up being amazing in the raid tier because of the way they were designed. Machinist has gone up and down. I've gone through so many iterations of a lot of ththese jobs that other than Gunbreaker and Dancer, that it's hard to even really figure it out. Everyone's always hyped when a new job gets announced, like at an actual fan fest. But other than that, it's actually really hard for me to, gauge. This one was too. Do you think we'll get like a traditional, Final Fantasy VIII end boss? Yeah, I think Ultimecia, Griever, stuff like that. Something in those veins is probably going to happen at the end of Eden. I have not played Vagrant Story or Vandal Hearts for that other answer as well. Oh, this one says I should tone down absolute statements because of something I said about post-level caps. No, this is based on things that they've told us. They've told us specifically that they don't want players to have to grind to get to the same level as players once they hit endgame. This isn't a baseless thing. They've said in the past that they will not do post-level. Now, they could go back on that 150%. It's their game. They can do whatever they want. But they have given us their answer on post-level cap character progression And that's what the vertical item level is for. They're not trying to then make you grind out additional skills or anything like that, unless it's for a tangential piece of content like Eureka. So my absoluteness is based on their absoluteness. But if they go back on it, then of course I'll eat my words, which will also be eating their words. So just a comment on that one. Recently rewatched the original trailer. Do you think we'll ever get a buffing or enchanting like attacks with burn, freeze, or confuse? Well, the problem with that is those kind of status effects don't really have any meaning. Now, it's not to say we couldn't have a job that their utility for the raid group has some sort of fire theme or ice theme or something like that, and that, you know, buffs people's attack. But something more in depth than that, probably not. But who's to say? They probably won't have anything that exactly represents like the Black Mage casting the spell on the, because you're talking about the 1.0 trailer where he buffs the arrow to be full of fire before he fires into Malboro's mouth. No, I don't think we'll ever see anything as direct as that. Maybe thematically buffing allies with elements, but not that direct, if that makes sense. When are we getting Ascian ultimates? Well, we've got one more to deal with, and then we can come back on that discussion sometime way later if you're still playing the game years and years from now. Why is the PvP player base so small? I think it's because of the Final Fantasy franchise not really being a PvP franchise. World of Warcraft was built on Warcraft first and foremost, which, yes, is a PvE campaign, but also has a storied history of custom game modes and PvP. And I think they encouraged that really early on. The entire theme of their first expansion was all about Alliance versus Horde, with a few raids with some lore sprinkled in here or there, set up for however many future expansions they were actually teasing intentionally. And I think that precedent being set, I mean, when you launch your game and you just say, yeah, we don't have PvP now, you're kind of already telling the PvP players you weren't a priority right off the bat. And I understand that with the development of A Realm Reborn, that's a little rude to say, in a sense. It's kind of disingenuous because of what the game went through. But it's also, that doesn't change the way people feel about it. So that's why I think our community, also our game systems, quite frankly, don't support great PvP. It's not bad. It's fun. It's enjoyable. But it doesn't fit in the construct of the rest of the game and the rest of the game's progression. Do you think Blue Mage will learn Ultima? No, that is not a spell you just casually go around learning for many, many, many lore purposes. Then there's another one here about glamour. Oh my goodness, there's so much text here. Yeah, I remember going past that. Somebody wished me happy birthday. I'm going to let you guess what the 1227 in my name stands for when it comes to birthdays. Yes, I'm 800 years old. Oh man, there's so much going on here. People talking about jobs, people talking about classes. No, we're never going to see a class. Okay, so they've told us this again. When going back to the absolute thing, they've told us they're never doing a class again, a class to job style thing. They're only going to be releasing advanced jobs, so you probably won't see that level of growth. But there's just so much text here that I think for a lightning round, I don't think I can really go into this. It's a lot of text, and glam is not something I have a great opinion on either. Trust me, I don't think you really want that. Then there's another one here. Did you play Terra before? No. Do we know where Eureka is in the realm? Yeah, it's explained to you when you first unlock it. I think it just randomly popped off the coast of Hingashi. I think it's like to the north of Hingashi, if I'm not mistaken. They give you an exact location in the very first quest when you actually unlock it. Berserker, do you think we'll ever get something like that? I mean, we could. Who am I to say? Why don't we see melee DPS with big weapons? Hey, don't you dare talk about that spear. That spear is plenty large enough, all right? I know you're a big fan of Puppet Master. I'm a big fan of potential Beastmaster limited job being introduced. Would you like to see a whip? Whip is a traditional Beastmaster weapon. I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they went a different direction with it. Whip is higher on my list of weapons I would expect to see for a Beastmaster, though. And I think there's another one here. I took that really, really short one. There's one that gave me a clarification on item level syncs. You are right about that. I was unfortunately just taking information specifically about Eureka, which has such a low item level cap that the stat caps are very, very easy to meet. But in the case of stat caps that are closer to one another, the closer the gap between the item level sync and the item level you actually are, the more likely that materia slots are actually going to be useful. For Eureka, though, it's such a huge gap that odds are you're not actually going to run into a situation where having the materia slots is actually going to be superior outside of the extra 5 materia slots on the item level 300 stuff, because A, you get Eureka bonus, which is way too good to pass up, and B, it's already item level 300, so you know you're actually going to be getting them, and it's a stat cap that is going to be otherwise for that item level. Was that all of them? Oh man, I feel like there's another one I probably skipped past. There was a lore question about the races being diluted. Why isn't everyone's mass increased as we've been rejoined? That's a great question. I don't have an answer for. It could have to do with the ether being of the soul, which I think, yeah, you suggest right here. That could be because it's ether to do with the soul and not of the body, or even the mind. It could be with the mind, but it would most likely be that it's ether rejoining via their soul and not their physical bodies being merged. You know what I mean? And then is there anything else that I need to get? There's the elitism, the when you were in Japan, the 396. Thoughts on Summoner's current DPS, really high, probably going to get nerfed. And again, I think Summoner needs a systemic change come 6.0. I think that's necessary at this point for it to get a change. Monk, I think it's necessary. Summoner, I think it's necessary. And I think that might be it. There's one about the player run farms. Yeah, I thought that was supposed to be in 5.3x, but I guess I got pushed back because they probably pushed like the fashion items or something ahead of it, or it just wasn't ready on time. Okay, it looks like those are all the questions we hit for the lightning round, and it was a very long lightning round, but I'm glad I decided to do it that way because there was a lot of questions this week, and it still is a pretty long video, even with that super speedy lightning round. So thank you everyone for asking your questions, and hopefully the answer was good enough, except for the monitor guy. Kind of just didn't give him an answer because I didn't have one, so sorry about that. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and ask your questions for next week's episode in the comment section of the video below. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of episode 300 last week, and hopefully you're ready for another 100. And hopefully I remember when 400 is coming up and don't remember in the middle of the video like I did with 300. Thank you for watching. I will see you all next week for another Q&A, and until then, take care.